Good evening. It is Tuesday, May the 21st of 2024, and this is the Town of Barnstable Waterways Committee workshop. And before we get going, please note that tonight's meeting is being recorded and broadcast on Channel 18, and in accordance with Mass General Law 30A, Section 20, I must inquire whether anyone is taping this meeting and to please make their presence known. In attendance tonight, we have the Harbor Master Brian Taylor for the Town of Barnstable, Principal Assistant Pam Swider-Cohen. We have committee members Greg Egan, Gary Schramick, myself, Paul Everson, waiting on Todd, and
I'm here. I just got logged back in. I'm just having a little video camera problem.
So we have all members present. Now we do have a vacancy, and at this time I'd just like to thank Peter Cross for his service on the committee and thank him for his input and his wise counsel, and hopefully we will see him soon on some other committee around town. So we wish him well. Okay, so this workshop is going to be on marina fees, proposal of a new fee structure. This time I'll hand it over to the Harbor Master for a presentation.
Okay, can you see the screen I am sharing right now, which is the agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
This is Gary joining on the phone. I don't have access to a computer right now.
Okay. Thank you, Gary. So can you see the existing Town of Barnstable municipal marina rates as well on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Let me just see if I move it over here. If I'll move, it doesn't look like it will. Talking from a different screen. All right. So what you see, Brian Taylor, Harbor Master for the Town of Barnstable. Good evening. This has been a long anticipated meeting to go over some of marina fees. First and foremost, I would like it to be some open dialogue from the individuals present. That way we can talk about this. There's pros and cons to each different approach that I present forward. I'm going to try to present one fee structure that I believe is the best way of moving forward for the Town of Barnstable and its users, although I'd be open to discussing any and other ideas that the committee has. So what you see in front of you is the Town of Barnstable current municipal marina rates. I want you to focus in on Barnstable Harbor. That's kind of what started this conversation. At different sections throughout the harbor, you have different fees. So in slip 1 through 34, you have a per foot charge with a minimum. And then in other sections of the marina, you have a flat rate fee. So you may have an individual, let's say on the east side of the marina in slip 1 through 34, that has a 25-foot boat and they're paying a per foot charge. And then you might have the same size vessel on the west side that's paying a flat rate fee. What happens with that is you have an individual, for example, with a 25-foot boat paying, $4,600, $4,700, and then you have another individual on the other side of the marina paying $2,500. So there's a little, or 2607. There's a little discrepancy right now with the fee structure in Barnstable Harbor, and that's kind of what prompted us to take a major overlook at the fee structure. So I'm going to start with giving you a quick glance at the fee structure so you can see how it's set up. Again, some of our marinas have a per foot charge like Bismore, and others like Gateway or Barnstable Harbor have a fixed rate fee structure. And then again, you go back to a fee structure of a per foot charge in Prince Cove. So a little bit all over the board, different per foot charges, different flat rate fees. You may have in slip in Prince Cove, but you pay a different per foot charge than Bismore. I believe the town purchased these different marinas at different points in time and took over these different properties, which prompted different fee structures throughout the course of the years. That's why we see this existing fee structure. Important to note that you also have transient rates on this fee structure. You also have, which includes winter transient rates, and summer transient rates. You have electrical charges, offload fees for Bismarck Park Marina, which is our main commercial entity. And then we do have a shoulder season where we set off-season rates from either May 1st to May 15th, which we didn't do this year, or from September 15th to October 31st. So I'm going to get right into it here. The current fee structure is what you see on the screen, and the proposed fee structure with the current fee structure will also be presented. That way you can compare and contrast both of them. So the Town of Barnstable Municipal Marina rate proposal is to do a flat fee structure across the board, except for one location, and that is within Barnstable Harbor. There's a small area which is called the small craft area. They have some smaller slips, so they don't have the same type of access as everywhere else. And so because of that, there will be a flat rate. There's a proposal for a flat rate in that location. Again, the proposed fee structure would be $190 per foot for resident and $215 a foot per non-resident. So across the board, every marina would have the same per foot rate charge. There would be some minimums that go into effect. We lowered the minimum at Gateway to 16 feet, but every other marina kept the same minimum that we had in effect. So that is for the slip contract rates. Any questions on what I've presented so far?
The small C, up to how many feet are those boats, and how many are included in that?
17, and there's approximately 16 slips.
Okay.
Some are transient slips that remain vacant that we issue transient slips for, but the majority of them are filled with slip contracts. And as you can see, the current rate for a small craft slip, maximum size, I think, is 17 feet, or there may be one that's 17.5 that's on the outside. They're paying $782 a year for that small craft slip. So I'll continue along here. We are proposing to change the electrical usage rate. I'm getting some feedback. Might be from you, Pam. I think I'm going to mute you.
That's fine.
We're proposing an electrical usage fee change, which would change. We had one flat fee. It's $10. No, it's not Pam. Getting like a scanner on the back or something. We had one flat fee, which was $10 a foot, and we're going to change that to a 50 amp charge with $15 for a 30 amp per day and $25 for a 50 amp per day. We also have an in-season rate May 1st to October 31st for electrical charges. I'd like to increase that. Electricity increases, I need to adjust my rates accordingly. For the offload fee, right now a per usage charge for Bismarck Park is $35. I'd like to increase that to $45 per charge. And then we have a calendar year rate fee that goes out to the commercial fishermen. If a commercial fisherman had paid for a full calendar year offload fee, which is unlimited offloads throughout that calendar year, we bill them the next year, and that's what this fee is indicating, and that would also increase to $700. Any questions so far?
I got a quick question on the rate for the non-resident. Is there a reason why we can't increase that?
Well, so the rate I propose for the non-resident is larger than the resident charge. We could certainly go ahead.
I understand. Yeah, no, I understand fully. I'd love to see it. You know, if I'm reading this correctly, originally it was 177. I'm using French Cove because it's at the bottom. 177 against 207. So you're $30 a foot. And we're actually reducing the differential now down to 25 a foot.
Yeah, you see, I see what you're saying, but you also have Bismarck, which was, $26.75 different, and I'm moving it to 25. I'm just trying to get some consistency with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, open to some dialogue about it.
I just love to see the non-resident, somewhere around the 230.
Yeah, and
It's
I'm
such
gonna just-
a cherished possession for the town that for such a small premium, I think it's in our best interest to boost it up a little bit.
Okay.
Brian, do we have a percentage as to, and I know you may not have it for all of the marinas, but what percentage would be resident versus non-resident?
A very low percentage, but I'll show you the actual data. I did all the data out, and so you can see each slip. And I organized it by non-resident first and then resident. And so in each marina, I can't give you a percentage, but it's like a handful or two handfuls in some marinas. Barnstable Harbor being the most, Prince Cove being the least. So there's not that many. But I can certainly take a look at that, and if and come back to the Waterways Committee with a different recommendation if we need to. I understand Todd's point of view. The other side of things from my point of view too is that I don't want to go overboard on charging a non-resident, because I do have some residents and non-residents at the marina. So I just didn't want to go too far to the right with the fee and increase it too much.
Okay, and going forward on our wait lists, do we still have non-residents on the wait list for marinas?
So Prince Cove is the only location where we require you to be a resident.
Okay,
There
Yeah.
are, the other three marinas do have non-residents on the wait list. Although, again, it's not a large handful. Although as we're in this digital day and age and we add new names through a lottery type drawing, you do see more it reaches a little broader. But just to give you a little background, for example, moorings, you don't actually have to be a resident in the town of Barnstable to get a mooring. I know
Correct.
it's a different kind of point of view with the slips, but we don't stipulate that you need to be a resident other than Prince Cove Marina.
okay, and when we say resident, would that be a taxpayer in the town of Barnstable? Could someone who has a summer residence and their principal residence is not Barnstable, by virtue of owning a piece of real estate, in Barnstable, would that qualify them as a resident or still non-resident?
A resident. If
Okay.
you're a taxpayer in the Barnstable, we should probably rephrase how we say that. It's actually by being a taxpayer, you would get that decreased
Yeah.
rate.
Okay, thank
But
you.
I believe the regulations say resident. Pam, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that might be something we want to take a look at next time it comes up. So any further questions with what I've proposed here? I will say before we get into some of the hard data, because I'm going to jump into that some of these.
One other question before you go on.
Yep.
Are there any of these, now the numbers of slips over at Barnstable, 1 through 34, 35 to 53, and 54 to 70? Are there, in the three different numeric categories of those slips, are there any, let's say for a 25-footer, are some premium and others not so much, or?
It's a great question, Paul. So what that really comes down to is personal preference, right? So are they premium in a sense that the slip structure may be larger in one area than it is another? Correct. But basically the access to each location is pretty much similar. What I would consider premium is that, for example, Gateway may not have a bathroom facility located in close proximity to the marina. There is one down at Bismore, but that's located at Bismore, not Gateway, right?
Right.
They do have good parking. Barnstable Harbor has a bathroom on location. They have parking on location. Same thing with Prince Cove and Bismore, although Bismore parking is a little bit more strict, as everyone knows, with downtown Hyannis and where you can and cannot park. So there are some utility type things that are more of a premium in certain locations. But the only area that I would really identify there being a premium for is some of the locations that are non-premium, shall I say, would be the small craft area, because some of the fixed fingers are smaller and they're a little bit, they don't have pilings at the end and they're smaller in statute. And then some of the slips along the bulkhead at Prince Cove are really small and difficult to navigate into. So those are the kind of the two things that I've paid attention to while doing this proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions, Mr. Lelantis? Seeing none, we'll move right along.
I'm sorry, my mute button wasn't working. I appreciate what you're doing, and I don't know the answer to it. If I had a worthy suggestion, I would. I think some of the slips in Prince Cove, I think people are going to struggle with a $20 minimum, just because they're tough slips and they're 13-foot whaler slips all day long. So I wish I had a better suggestion to offer at this time. I do think it's going to be a little bit of a challenge, though.
No, I would agree with you. And what's interesting is that, and I'm comparing this fee structure in the red, what indicates a change. But if you go to the original fees, which is currently online, there's a 20-foot minimum already for $177.25 a foot right now. But I would agree with you that some of these locations, there are a few slips, especially along the bulkhead in Prince Cove, that you're only probably going to get a 13-foot whaler in.
Right.
So you're not wrong.
The other side to it is that our access to waterways, whether it be a mooring, a dock, in our geographic area, is such a premium now that one has to be prepared to pay for it. If you want that premium access, you're going to have to pay for it regardless of the size. So there's no sense probably beating a dead horse. You just have to do what you have to do.
Yeah, we really went back and forth, kind of a joint effort, and Pam and I talked about this today. We went back and forth with like, should we set a minimum? Should we not? Right? But things change and you don't know what type of economy you're going to be in. And without a minimum, what happens is people may downsize. The revenue fluctuates so much per foot if you just stick with no minimum. But I'd be, like I said, open dialogue on this. Go ahead.
The one thing I was just going to add, and the only reason I bring it up is because, personally, it was an issue with me, is I almost wonder, unless it's too much red tape for you to go through, if this is the time when you can kind of add into the structure the ability to assign slips. You were gracious when we were going through some slip changes, and I've made several changes over the years.
Mhm.
But in the same token, that's a lot to have on your plate. And maybe it's something that has to be under the harbor master's purview right from Jump Street. If you have somebody 17-foot Mako and a 23-foot slip, it shouldn't be a permission for you to move them because it's revenue for your entity.
Yeah, and it's really not, to be honest. It's really not. The regulations are written that I may efficiently utilize this space that I have, right? It's tough because I may manage it differently than it was managed previously. And so I may invite those moves as I get change of vessels and move things around. And maybe before I became harbor master, there wasn't as many change of vessel requests for larger vessels as there has been since COVID, really, since that was kind of like the increase in change of vessel requests that we saw. So there's a lot that goes into it. But right now, I mean, I can officially move anyone to any slip that I need to officially utilize the space.
Good.
I just don't
that's the way
know.
it should be.
Which it should be like that, and I'm sure Greg will speak to some of it. That's just part of running a marina. I mean, you need to be able to modify, move people around, officially utilize the space you have. I mean, that's the gig, really, when it comes down to running a marina, to make sure it's operating safe, it's operating legal, and then you're getting, to be honest, the most bang for your buck in return. I mean, at the end of the day, this is an enterprise account. It's not it's self-sufficient. It's not paid for by tax money. It's paid for by the users. So if I want to do projects like the bulkhead over at Barnstable Harbor that was redone, the bulkhead in Bismore, redo the building facility at Prince Cove, do a new Chapter 91 license for Prince Cove, dredging, all that needs to come out of this program. And I need to have a certain amount of money in reserves and a certain amount of money to operate on a continued basis, that I'm not going to the town and saying, I need money to do this or that. I'm paying for this by the enterprise account, which is
Sure.
really, at the end of the day, it's its own little business. It's really what it comes down to.
Brian, can you comment about the size of the wait lists at the marinas? Are they substantial? Are they closed? They're healthy? You've got a good amount of wait list people?
So they're all closed. We did Barnstable Harbor last year. We added some names through a lottery type drawing because we were getting down the list and a few individuals weren't moving from the top. We added names at Bismore. I think Gateway's pretty healthy and Prince Cove is fairly healthy right now. So we do have enough people on the list for me to fill spots. I do that every year. In fact, last year, I think we filled 9 spots in Barnstable Harbor. It was like a domino effect. People just didn't renew and we filled 9 spots off the wait list.
Mhm.
So thank God we did a lottery. So what I really do is try to maintain the wait list that, let's say I have 70 slips in Barnstable Harbor. I want 70 people on the list, so on and so forth, each marina. Make sense?
Yep.
That's just kind of my guideline. That's not like a regulation or anything. All right, so I'm just gonna get into the data here, which is kind of more of the in-depth conversation, because some of these fee increases going from a flat fee in some locations to a per foot fee are drastic, meaning that they're quite a bit of an increase. And again, it's because we have this different fee structure at every single marina, and we're trying to piece together. Really, what I'm trying to do is hammer down, okay, let's go to one flat fee. But with that move, there's going to be some significant increases across the board. The increase for everyone, because I'm going up from Bismore, which is $187.75 a foot. I'm going to 190, so there's a small increase for Bismore right off the top. But on other locations, that per foot charge may change quite significantly. So let's just start for example, right? Let's do it for example. We have Barnstable Harbor slip 37. I have it highlighted here. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Currently, that slip's paying a flat fee of $2,607. They have a 20.7 foot boat on there, and then an adjusted fee of $190 a foot at the minimum of 25 feet. Be $4,750 to $4,750. So it's really almost a it's over a $2,000 increase for that one slip in 1 year. That's a drastic increase. That's example one. So let's go back to a location that has more of a flat fee right now. It's per foot. You have slip 27, Barnstable Harbor. It's currently, a cabin boat, 37 feet. He's a per foot charge right now. He's paying $6,327. He has a minimum of 25 feet. He's over the 25 feet. So he's, getting charged for his 37 feet length overall. His total is $7,030. So he does have an increase of about $700.
Excuse me,
So
Brian, how often do you adjust rates?
2016, we did an adjustment, which was a percentage adjustment. So basically, and I don't know off the top of my head, let's call it 4%. It was a 4% percentage adjustment. What happens is, as you keep doing these percentage adjustments, you have the flat rate fee adjust at one rate, and then you have the per slip flat rate, the per foot rate adjust at a different percentage than the flat rate. So it just continues to spread itself out over time. But to
Under-
answer your question, I think it was 2016, we had a flat rate increase, a percentage increase. And then we had in 2021, some electrical changes due to the cost of electricity and some commercial updates to transient dockage and recreational transient dockage. No slip charge change.
So what, and I understand, and getting the uniformity, I think is a great initiative, and it's got to be done. What triggers from your office's perspective a rate review or a rate increase?
So one, again, operating under the enterprise account, making sure that the revenue is paying for your expenses. So doing a budget analysis, revenue covers expenses, really want to be level funded, right? Two, what do you have in the future projects coming up? Where do you going to need an increase in revenue to cover some of those future projects? Three, the current rate structure. To be honest, I think that I've been noticing the inconsistency for Barnstable Harbor, for example. And from my point of view, my job is to be fair and equitable. I don't think at this point in time, charging an individual that has a 25-foot boat on one side of the marina, $4,700, and charging the other individual on the other side of the marina, $2,600 is fair. So that's kind of what prompted this. That's to answer your question.
At the 190 rate, roughly, if that's going to carry throughout the marinas, is there an average right now of private marinas in town as to the per foot? And have you done any cost analysis in that regard towards private? And are they charging minimums? I imagine most of them are charging minimums. And where does this line up against the private sector?
So I did do that in the last presentation that I made to Waterways. Let me see if I can bring it up. What I can tell you real quick though, is that the town of Falmouth, $165 a foot for a resident. Maybe 185 for a non-resident. Gloucester, which we could compare to, they were 187 for a resident. Town of Sandwich is $135 for a resident. So we're a little above the town of Sandwich. We're a little above Falmouth, but we also have 4 marinas in our larger enterprise program than they do. Let me just see if I can get into some of this data that I got last time from private marinas. I wasn't so much concerned with the private marinas as I was with municipal marinas, to be honest. I mean, I did get some of the data. I wanted just off the top of my head, it was around 300, it ranged anywhere from $300 a foot to 4 something. Mr. Egan, can you speak to your rate? I mean, that may help me in this.
I remember that you presented us with sort of a scattering of local marina rates. I would say that these rates are all would be much. These proposed rates are still much less than the private marinas.
Okay.
But like, okay, what is I agree for curiosity, it's interesting, but I think the more natural and appropriate comparison is to the other municipal operations.
Yeah, that's kind of what I base it upon. But I know I did have some of the data in the PowerPoint presentation, and I can certainly try to gain some of the more of the private marinas. I was hoping I could bring it up real quick, but it doesn't look like it will let me for whatever.
I recall there's a lot of it has sliding scales, and some of the marinas have different categories as well, and so it wasn't a direct comparison. But your recollection of $300 to $400 is very accurate in general.
Yeah, and again, I mean, to Todd's comment, and I appreciate your help, Mr. Egan. To Todd's comment, yes, it is a premium to be on the water. Although I want to make sure that it's still fair for the resident, right, to be able to afford to be able to get a slip. So I'm not looking to charge what a private marina charges, and we certainly don't have some of the amenities that a private marina will have. I mean, they have boat yards and services that we just can't provide. So it's tough to compare those two.
Brian, do you think that it would be a significant hardship to some of these people that would have 30, 40, 50% increases in their dock rates? I guess that would presume you know them, or you have some feedback, and maybe you don't, and maybe it's an unfair question, but I was just thinking, you know, maybe for some severe sort of jumps that they could be phased in for a couple of years for maybe those ones that had some threshold of what could possibly considered an extreme increase. You know, select ones. I don't know how that would work, but I just trying to think out loud of your comment relative to equity and fairness. We got to bring them up, or we got to bring them all in line. How do you do that with creating a hardship? I don't think any of us want to do that.
No, and I mean, that's kind of what I'm outweighing here. I mean, that's kind of why this is such a difficult conversation, because you're right. It's not only 40-50%. Some of these may double in price, right? That might be a double in price. And I'm sure that's going to impact some individuals that have slips. But I'm open to a better way to go about this. I feel like it's time to address the elephant in the room here. We need to come to a flat fee structure across the board that's fair and equitable for everybody. If we want to take a look at one marina, let's take a look at one marina and focus on that. Again, like I said, Gateway doesn't have the same amenities at Barnstable Harbor. Should it be the same per rate charge as Barnstable Harbor or Prince Cove? That's why we're here. That's why we're having these conversations. Obviously, I'd like to have something set in stone before we go into a public meeting. That's you know, and we go into a public meeting in person. This is what I have that's set in stone. I realize it's a hammer, and you know, it's a lot to take in. But if we go back to the data and we look at it, there are projected increases that can be somewhat close to double for some individuals. It's smaller for others. Most of those are in Barnstable Harbor. Very minimal impact at Bismarck Park due to the small increase. Same thing, Prince Cove, pretty minimal impact at Prince Cove. For example, we'll take slip A4 here. They're going from 55.95 to 58.05. So I mean, is it an increase? Is that a lot of money? Yes, although it's not as a drastic increase as Barnstable Harbor. Gateway.
So Barnstable is the one that looks like it's going to have those pretty drastic increases on some slips, correct?
Well, Barnstable and Gateway. Gateway, again, it gets pretty difficult because you have individuals that are paying a flat rate fee at Gateway right now, and they're paying 26.07. And then some of the slips would go up to, you know, it starts here 4,800, 3,100. They're a bit of a drastic increase. But Barnstable Harbor probably has the biggest increase in some of the slips. But in the same breath, you have those individuals that have been paying a flat rate for however long, right? And they're paying $2,600, and the guy across the way with the same size boat has been paying $4,500. So they've been saving $2,000 a year. That's the way I'm looking at it. I mean, they're at the same breath. It's yes, is it a drastic increase? Of course, but is it fair?
Right, and so I think maybe let's think about some comments so far, and you know, maybe to incorporate something to offset some of these things. Todd's point about the increase on non-residents seems to be in some areas much less of an impact than it would be, for the resident. The number of slips at Barnstable Harbor, when you say that the ones that are double, do we know how many actually look like they're going to double?
Yeah, I did most of the data here. So anything that was in that flat rate fee structure, which basically runs from, in this circumstance.
Okay, yeah.
So it'd be anything from 35 to 53, any of the slip numbers 35 to 53. And this just joins it together, and I'll go back to the non-resident. That's why you see different numbers in different locations, but approximately 20 would be probably the largest increase. And then as well as down in the Millway section, which is $1,673 right now. They would also have a large increase. If you see here in slip 55, this individual would go from paying $1,673 to $3,420, more than double.
Mm-hmm.
In that location. Again, let me just finish the data here. You asked a little bit about resident versus non-resident. So in the beginning of each marina, I have resident versus non-resident, and that Barnstable Harbor is probably our largest area, where I don't know off the top of my head, but it looks like we have 13 or 14. We go down to Bismore. Some of them are commercial. They're just designated as commercial. We still do resident or non-resident.
Right.
So I think we have about 6 or 7. Prince Cove, you only have a handful, 5 or 6. Some of those individuals have had a slip since we purchased the marina, so they're grandfathered in. And then Gateway, I think there was only a few, like 2 or 3. But if we go back to the data, we'll start back up at Barnstable Harbor for projected revenue. In FY23, we made $222,000 at Barnstable Harbor. If we went to a per fee structure, except for the small craft location, total estimated revenue based on the data we have right now would be just short of $300,000. If we took a look at Bismore Park, it remains pretty consistent because they're getting charged a per foot charge of $187 a foot, increase of about $2,000. Prince Cove Marina, fairly consistent because of the data in the smaller crafts in there, in the minimum of 20 feet right now. Fairly consistent, about $9,000 increase in revenue. And then Gateway Marina was approximately a $22,000 increase. Again, Barnstable Harbor and Gateway Marina are probably the most impacted by this. So current total revenue or last fiscal year, FY23, for slip contracts was $524,000. Projected revenue, if we were to change to the slip fee minimum per foot, would be $634,000, just $635,000. So an increase of about $110,000 in revenue for slip contracts. That's just some of the hard data.
Yeah, it would seem to me, though, that...
Brian.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Brian, when you look at Barnstable Harbor, for those people that are paying the flat rate at a lower rate for years, when was the last time there was any rate increase per foot in the harbor?
I believe it was 2016.
Do you have that?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so if you went from 2016 as an example, what that person is paying now, and what it would have been if they were on a per foot basis, to show what kind of money they've saved over the years, and compared to somebody who pays, let's say, a per foot basis for all those years at a higher rate than that flat rate. So, I mean, you can justify it. It's hard to swallow that they were getting a discount since 2016.
Yeah, and some from even before 2016, because the fee structure in 2016 was still the same. They just did they did a percentage increase.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Basically, what I'm saying, yeah, I mean, to justify it, I mean, to say this is what you would have been paying, and this is what you actually paid over those years. So,
Yeah.
you know, there's that channel's got to be dredged. You know, that's an expense. All kinds of things around there. Anyway, this is my comment.
Okay.
I mean, I'm in the harbor, and I pay a per foot basis.
Yep. That's a good point. Unfortunately, and you know, I can certainly do that exercise. I just don't know how. I don't know how people are going to take it. I have a feeling this is going to be a huge issue, to be honest, because I'm increasing some of these fees almost double. And, you know, people are going to say, well, the fee wasn't that. It wasn't that. I wasn't a per foot charge. I was paying a flat rate, and now it's getting doubled, and I'm getting paid a per foot charge. So it's going to be tough. And that's why we're having these conversations. You know, do we look at just Barnstable Harbor and try to adjust the rate? If we do that, maybe we come to a smaller per foot rate to not make it be such a big increase. Again, then all my marinas have different rates, which I'm fine with. But is that fair across the board? We just need to think about those things before we go ahead and you know, alter things.
Well, if all the harbors, the improvements to all of the harbors, I mean, they all should be within the same rate structure, I think. Just because it's a town function to maintain the harbors, upgrade the floats and everything else, and the bulkheads. So,
Brian, this is Greg. One of the things that kind of makes this be a little bit of a perfect storm is a little bit self-inflicted by not adjusting the rates annually. So you know, we have some old rates, 6-7-year-old rates, combined with sort of the logistics of streamlining, you know, the process. That must be unbelievably complicated for your office to deal with contracts on all these multiple formulas. But just like going forward, you know, you say based on the budget and things like that. Well, you know, certainly you're buying equipment every year and salaries go up, and you know, nothing goes down. So you know, to hold everything flat, I think it's easy, and it sort of prevents, you know, people from complaining, but it also puts us at a little bit of a disadvantage, you know, when you have these kind of discussions. So I would suggest that that it's looked at every year, so you know, people, nothing stays the same really anywhere in terms of rates. And so I would suggest that you consider looking at that. You can decide how much, or even if you want to, but make the assessment each year.
No, I would 100% agree with you. And that's what kind of brought me as well to this per foot charge. Because let's say next year or in 5 years, I want to increase the fee and go up 5%. Everybody's going up at that 5% rate. Right now, if I increase this fee 5%, again, it's separating the individuals. One flat rate's getting increased 5%, the 2607, and then the per foot charge is getting increased 5%. The dollars don't match up. One expands and the other, you know, just kind of piggybacks behind it. So, but I agree with you, Mr. Egan, and again, a lot of these fee structures have been in existence for many, many years, and we have either increased by a percentage or a dollar amount, which was like $5. Never have we said, oh, we're gonna stop, reset this, and that's why we're here with these drastic increases. And that's why I keep coming back to it. It's a big hammer. This is a hammer. It's like boom, we're resetting everything. But at the same time, and kind of my end spiel here, and we got 10 minutes, is we do have projects coming forward. Like Greg said, salaries increase, equipment costs increase, utilities costs increase. We have massive projects that are coming forward. You know, we have a harbor plan in effect in Hyannis Center Harbor, which considers Bismarck Park, Gateway Marina. We have dredging that occurs at the marinas. You know, and I wasn't here, but I'm sure you guys were. It was like 2012, 2011, when we had all the pilings pop out in Barnstable Harbor. That was an expense. One year, the bulkhead fell in, and that was an expense at Barnstable Harbor. We're looking at Prince Cove for long-term planning, redo Chapter 91 license, fix up the building facility that's there to make it office setting for staff. We're always looking at new projects to either one, expand or improve these facilities. And like Mr. Egan said, there's always costs associated with running marina. I mean, he knows he runs his own right now. Just bulkheads alone, you know, a small project can be well over a couple $1 million for a small area. So there's that to take into consideration as well.
You know, when you all excellent points, but when you look at the numbers that you presented to us, I was just trying to keep track a little bit, making some notes. When we say drastic increase, it really is not for everybody, though. It seems to me it would be, well, I don't know how you do percentage, but percentage of slip holders, how many total slip holders, and then how many fall into that category that you shaded. You know, it might be like a small subset. A lot of them were reasonable increases, particularly after, you know, 6 or 7 years with no increases. I don't think anybody would have a problem with those. And the bigger ones, maybe we could, I don't even know if it's possible bookkeeping wise to have some sort of a phase in, or, you know, I don't know. It seems to me that in general, it's a good direction for for your department to go, and it's needed, and it was needed a long time ago. It needs to be implemented. So how do we consider some of those people that might be hit really hard? Do we try to make some accommodation? Is it even possible bookkeeping wise with the town's you know, computers, or do we just or do you just roll it out and have a description of the process and why? And you know, none of these rates, not that they're supposed to compete, go back to the private. They're not supposed to, but they're all well below private ones. And it seems to me very competitive with the municipal ones that you presented the research on. So we're not really going out on a major limb. It's just the fact that we haven't had many adjustments, and it seems hard to bring everybody up to speed. And I get why you want to have some input like this, because I can see the position you're in, but I think the mission that you're doing is correct, and you're posturing the town in the right way.
I appreciate that. Yeah, no, it's a good point, Mr. Egan. It's like, you know, I was just thinking about that, because we do allow individuals to pay multiple slip payments. Maybe we spread it over a full fiscal year, right? For those major increases for the first year or two. It's a great point. I'll bring it up. You know, I think, you know,
Brian,
Brian,
do you have the rates for Millway and for Barnstable Marine, what they're charging per foot?
I did, but in my PowerPoint presentation, and for whatever reason,
Oh, okay. All right.
let me just try it one more time.
That's all right. If it's there, I'll when I can have access to my computer, I'll pull it down, or if you can send it out.
So the discrepancy really looks like basically Barnstable Harbor. And as you first pointed out, Brian, you could have a 25-foot boat on one side of the marina paying that flat rate, and you could have another person with a 25-footer on the other side under the current structure, you know, paying considerably more. I think inequity is the lower rate needs to come up, and in one fell swoop. I mean, it's a big it's a big number for somebody. Again, realizing that they basically have been paying a sub rate or a sub-market charge since at least 2016, and not have been increased. They've had a bargain for quite a long. It's just, how do you get them? Do you do it all in one fell swoop? Do you graduate it? Do you graduate it? You know, in fairness to the other people paying the rate, you know, why, you know, could I take my 25 footer and go over and get one of those slips that were on the standard fee? No, you can't. So, you know, to bring it's going to hurt, you know, some folks, yeah, but I think getting it back to equitable in the same arena, the same size boat should be paying the same.
All right.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. The other thing is, I think because if it's such an increase for people, if you had a payment on a quarterly basis for those that are affected by the huge rates, so it won't hit their pocketbook all at once,
Okay.
that might ease the pain a little bit.
Yeah, no, I like it, and I'd have to figure it out because obviously a calendar year versus a fiscal year is different. But
Yes. Yeah.
Greg kind of spoke to that as well, but it's a great idea to
Yeah.
even think about, to be honest. So this is why we're having these types of conversations. I know we have to move into Waterways, the actual Waterways Committee meeting. We all need to sign off and then sign back on, unfortunately, because it's a new meeting. But with that being said, would everyone be okay with me taking some of your ideas and coming back to the next Waterways Committee meeting and just talking about it? I do want to start getting this out and about and start communicating out to the slip holders. Hey, come to a Waterways Committee meeting. We're talking about fee structure. There may be a big overhaul in fee structure changes. I do want to start getting some of this out there. I may, you know, what did Derek say today, Pam? I have to wear an armored vest around, but I need to get it out there. Start moving forward. I'm trying to do the right thing. I understand it's going to impact a lot of people and cost more money, but sometimes you have to make the tough choices to get to a point where it makes sense.
I think you can just say it's all Chairman Everson's idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, I appreciate everyone's time with this proposal. I'm gonna stick with these numbers in this proposal, take a little bit of what was brought today. And then I'll talk about it and we'll refresh at the next Waterways Committee, not the one tonight, but the one next month.
Okay.
All right, so we'll sign out and see you in a few minutes.
Thank you.